Hey, what's up, everyone? Kitty5 here, and I'm going to be talking about Alien Earth, while Alien Trilogy for the PlayStation 1 plays in the background. Now, I really honestly wasn't going to make a video about this, but I gotta be honest, it's been eating away at me ever since I watched the finale, which was almost a week ago now, and I have to get this off my chest. And before I get into this video, I hope you're all having an awesome day, and I hope you're doing well. But I should start this off by saying that, for those of you that aren't familiar with me or my channel, I am a huge fan of the Alien series. And, needless to say, when I heard about Alien Earth, I was excited about it. I have seen all the movies, and I read a bunch of the comics as well. It was among my favorite are the Dark Horse ones. But, yeah, like I said, I was excited about this series, especially since it's the first time that a television series was made from the Alien franchise. It's nice to see the franchise dipping its feet into the waters of network television and streaming. Now, I gotta level with you all. My expectations were a little heightened about the show, and a part of that was because I did read that it did receive a 93% Rotten Tomatoes rating from the critics. Some of those critics even calling it a masterpiece. Now, like I said, this had me hyped up, but I did my best to temper my expectations, because I know sometimes the critics don't always get it right. And as far as the series goes, as far as the first 3 episodes, I can honestly say that I really enjoyed them. You know, I mean, sure, it had its flaws, but I was willing to overlook them because it was early on in the series, and I found the pacing of the show to be good, and I didn't think the acting was too terrible at the start either, and the concepts that they brought forth I really liked as well. Now, I was, despite this, I was not totally oblivious of what people were saying on the internet. You know, right off the bat, people were calling the show dumb and poorly written, and man, this series has a lot of flaws. But I largely disregarded that because, like I said, it was early on in the series. I don't know, maybe this is an extreme way of thinking, I don't know, but whenever I watch a movie or a series, I do give it an honest shot and go through it as much as I can before I start shitting over it, like a lot of people did after only the first episode. Basically, I did do my best not to fall into that trap of having a knee-jerk reaction to it. And, like I said, the show had flaws early on. Yeah, one of my big beefs was the design of the xenomorph. It didn't look as organic as what it did in the movies, which this movie did have a $250 million budget, so you could argue that there's no excuse that they had the xenomorph look the way that it did, but again, I was willing to overlook this. And another one of my biggest issues, and honestly, I'm surprised not many more people are bringing this up, and that is the plot armor of Joe Hermit, which is one of the lead characters, who happens to be the brother of Wendy, who is one of the other lead characters. And I figured, you know what, it's early on in the series, let's see how all this pans out, because I'm not going to be judging a series after only watching 3 episodes of an 8-episode series. I just don't think that's fair. But, yeah, the first 3 episodes, like I said, I enjoyed a lot. I saw the potential. The 4th episode was kind of dull, and the 5th episode I thought was awesome. But, I mean, let's keep this real, folks. A lot of people, including myself, liked the 5th episode because it looked the most like something you would see from Alien, especially the first movie. And, yeah, if anything, if I'm being honest, if I have to be very frank with you all, and I'm going to say this whether people like it or not, the 5th episode kind of proved, at least to me, that people really do not like change. I mean, yeah, you hear and see people say we want something different, but yet when something different happens, people complain about it, saying that it's nothing like what it used to be. And folks, you know, we have to stop doing this. It's very simple. It's either you're gonna want change or you're not. You know, you can't automatically dismiss something for trying something different. I can't excuse people saying, criticizing being something being different if it's poorly written and that. But I've seen a lot of stuff that is different that people just shit on just because it's not what they were used to, whether it be nostalgia or anything like that. But we have got to stop doing that. But, anyways, I digress. The 5th episode is where I feel the show peaks. And as far as the final 3 episodes, oh boy, did the show take a turn. Oh man. One of a big thing, which, like I said, I did watch all the movies, and I did watch, especially the prequel movies, Prometheus and Covenant. And one of the reasons why I don't really look that fondly of both those movies is because they depend so much on the fact that everybody on that show is an idiot, and the story cannot progress without that happening. You have no idea how much that irritates the hell out of me. I don't know why people feel that they need to dumb down characters in order to progress a story. To me, not only does it make the characters look unrealistic, but that's just bad writing, folks. I'm sorry. But, yeah, episode 6 is when the series, for me, started to take a nosedive. Episode 7 only had a runtime of 44 minutes, which I thought was really odd, and sure enough, the episode wasn't great, much like episode 6 was not great. But I did have in the back of my head that, well, surely that they made this episode this short because they were going to make a finale as long as the premiere, or even longer, which the season premiere was, I believe, over an hour. I think it was like an hour and 6 minutes long. But I decided, you know, that train of thought, they made that episode 7 short so they can make the finale longer, and that way it gives the writers a time to resolve a lot of what's happening on the show. But then came finale, and when I saw that it had a runtime of only 47 minutes, my heart immediately sank. I do not say this lightly. It has got to be one of the worst, if not the worst, season finales of any show I've ever watched. I've seen people, for the most part, talk about how the show ends on a cliffhanger. Folks, let me be clear on this. It's one thing you leave a show on the cliffhanger where you either have one of the plot points unresolved so it can be elaborated on the next season, or you introduce something new right at the end that will have you wanting to see more of it in the following season. But it's quite another if you leave every major plot point unresolved, and there were absolutely no repercussions to any of the major characters. But now, the finale of Alien Earth clearly falls under the latter. How can you say a finale ends on a cliffhanger when the finale accomplishes nothing? This finale, to put it bluntly, was a 47-minute long nothing burger. And it honestly left me feeling that I just wasted 8 hours of my life watching the show. And that's not a good feeling to have, especially if you're someone like me that kept an open mind and hoping that one way or another the show would end on a positive note. I have no idea what the writers were thinking, leaving such an open-ended finale. And here's the kicker, and you're going to get a kick out of this. At the time of recording this, which was, by the time I recorded this about 3 hours ago, a second season has not been greenlit yet. I mean, they're anticipating a second season, and the cast isn't expecting a second season, but it has not been officially greenlit yet. So having an episode like the finale in which it achieves nothing on literally every level, that just seems like a really dumb move, and I'm telling you right now, if by some chance this show does not get renewed somehow, then you really have to look at this finale and say, what the hell were you thinking? This show, I think, could potentially have cooked itself. Because you had to have, I mean, a good finale, yes, a good finale does have a cliffhanger or two. But like I just said, it's a nothing burger. Which is, at the end of finale, they played the Pearl Jam song, Animal. But the more apt song they should have been playing at the end of its finale should have been In the End by Linkin Park. Because of all the potential, of all the concepts, all the characters they introduced, in the end it didn't even matter. It really didn't. And I do kind of have to find myself chuckling a bit because one of the fears I saw from people about the finale, before the finale premiered, was, let's hope the finale sticks to the landing, unlike Alien Romulus. And you know what? People can say what they want about Alien Romulus. I personally loved the movie. I enjoyed it. In my opinion, it's the third best Alien movie. It's behind the first two Alien movies. But people can say all they want about that movie, but at least it had an ending. And even if I know a lot of people, including myself, the offspring at the end of the movie, I just gotta say, that was dumb as hell. I know a lot of people critique the newborn from Alien Resurrection, but I would have happily taken the newborn all over again instead of whatever the hell that offspring was supposed to be. I do apologize for those that do like the offspring's design, but I absolutely hated it when I first saw it. And my honest opinion when I saw it, I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. It just looks like the engineers from the prequels. And I tell you what, I'm getting so sick of Ridley Scott's influence on this franchise. And what the hell is his weird obsession with tall, pale humanoids anyway? I gotta be honest with y'all. The engineers are the worst piece of lore added to the Alien franchise, in my opinion. I'm sick of seeing them. I'm sick of hearing about them. And I hope that someday, somehow, they end up getting retconned out of existence from the lore. Because I think it's absolutely stupid. It's not needed. They need to just disappear. But, you know, that's another rant for another day. But yeah, going back to Alien Earth, you know, this show had every tool available for it to be successful, you know. It had a $250 million budget. It had an acclaimed writer in Noah Hawley, who I know wrote the show Fargo, which I have not seen Fargo, but from what I've seen and read and heard, I heard that Fargo is a really good written show. And creature designs were made by Weta, which, if I'm not mistaken, were responsible for the creature effects in the Lord of the Rings movies. I could be very wrong about that, but I'm just not understanding how this show went so wrong so fast. And, you know, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on Noah Hawley's writing abilities, because, like I said, I've never seen Fargo, but from what I've seen and read, from what I heard and read, Fargo is an acclaimed series, and one of the things is because of how good it was written. But as far as this show is concerned, I'm not sure that he was the right choice for this. I don't know. I can't really think. I'm sure a lot of you are like, well, who would you have gotten then? I would have at least gotten somebody, if not at the same caliber as him, but at least somebody that understands the lore of the Alien franchise. And at the very least, you know, I just don't understand how you can get somebody as esteemed as Hawley, make absolutely every character in this show completely stupid, and let's not forget that Wendy is pretty much a Mary Sue, and Joe and his impenetrable plot armor is just ridiculous. How any of that passes as good writing these days is beyond me. I just don't. Has the quality of writing gone that bad in TV and movies where people just, well, I'm not saying most people, some people watch this and say that it's somewhat acceptable. It's not. And I remember all the promos before the show premiered about the new creatures we were going to see in the series and how scary and awesome they were going to be. Well, for the most part, we never really got to see a whole lot of any of them besides the Xenomorph, which makes sense because the Xenomorph is supposed to be front and center of its own series. But I don't understand why they focus so much of the marketing on the other creatures when they ended up becoming an afterthought throughout the series anyway. I mean, the Teocellus, which was the eyeball octopus thing, was... I mean, it was featured quite a bit. For me, it's arguably the best new addition to the alien lore since the Alien Queen. But it just felt like, again, much like the characters and the story of the series, Teocellus was kind of wasted. And they built it up to be something big in the end. They just didn't do anything with it. Like, we only got to see like an episode or two of Species 19, which was the lead species. We got to see just the one little bit of the fly species, which ended up taking out Toodles, which was one of the Lost Boy characters. And Deep Plummet character, it was relegated to only like 3 minutes of screen time, would end up being like a walking Venus flytrap type thing. But as far as some of the other cool stuff in the series, you know, as far as any other cool stuff, I'd have to say that the new species, the concept, was cool, but it just, like I said, it just didn't do anything with it. But as far as some of the other stuff in the series, I have to just say I absolutely cannot stand the hybrids in the show. The concept of them is alright, I guess. It is kind of like borderline something you would get from Blade Runner with the replicants and stuff, like transferring memories and stuff. But I have to say the hybrids are some of the most unlikable characters I've seen in a show in a long time, and I never found myself getting attached to any of them. I don't even really. This may sound like a stupid comment, but I'm not even sure I was even supposed to root for them, because this show really was not written in a way that made me care about any of them. And don't even get me started on Wendy. Like I said, they did write her as a Mary Sue. You thought Rey Skywalker from the Star Wars sequel trilogy was bad, which, by the way, Rey is not a Mary Sue, but that's another discussion for another day. But my God, is she just... She's such a disgusting and unlikable character. I gotta be honest, if there is a second season, I hope she gets what's coming to her, and that whatever it is absolutely terrible. I just don't, and... You know, I'm not, if I have to be really honest, I'm not a real big fan of the actress that played her either, Cindy Chandler. I just don't think she has that charisma to portray a character like that. Again, that's not to go off too far into a tangent here, but, speaking of wasted potential with the characters and stuff, Kumi Maro, the cyborg, I thought was another missed opportunity on the show's part. I actually did find him one of the most intriguing characters throughout the show, but then again, the finale, like everything else, ended up turning him to a moron. And then there's Kirsch, which I was intrigued by as well. You know, I like Timothy Olyphant as an actor. You know, he was doing good early on in the show, and he did do good throughout the show, but his character, again, it's just a wasted opportunity, you know. The show kind of almost implied in a way that Kirsch had an ulterior motive and that there was a master plan behind everything he did in regards to how Prodigy worked and the species and stuff like that. But if the writers really did make it seem like that he had a master plan, then according to the finale, his master plan was that he didn't have a plan at all, and that it just... Again, a big nothing burger. It just... And the fight between him and Muro, that was... Because he was more than capable of overpowering and killing Muro. And not only did he not kill him, which I don't know why he had the perfect opportunity to, but he struggled against Muro. Now, keep in mind, yes, Muro is a cyborg, but he is still mostly human. But I just don't understand what kind of nonsense they were playing at with this. I mean, why on earth would you have arguably the two most interesting characters in the show seem like they're playing 4D chess the whole time, and in the end, they end up making them completely incompetent? Which, speaking of incompetent, let's talk about the boy genius, Cavalier, who he in himself was not even immune to being dumbed down. You know, one of the things I have to just, which I still can't, I love when things went pear-shaped at Neverland, and his course of action, being the genius that he was just sitting around and doing nothing. And why did he not have a contingency plan? See, I'm getting so worked up I can't even speak. Why did he not have a contingency plan in case something went awry with the hybrids? You know, I was not a fan of Boy Cavalier, I hated him at the start, but I did so in the best way possible, because I did kind of like his character, even though he was supposed to be the villain. He was intriguing, like Maro and Kirsch were. But early on in the show, they did show he had some kind of intelligence. He was able to use that in a rather nefarious manner. And to be honest with you, one of my favorite scenes in the entire show was whenever he did the negotiation with Yutani when it came to the Crash Maginot. But we got to see a glimpse of all that, but again, in the finale, nothing further was elaborated, and they just pretty much wasted that storyline too. But, But and I know I mentioned Joe several times, and much like everything else in the finale, not only did they not make him a believable or rootable character, but they actually doubled down on his plot armor. Can somebody please explain to me using simple English how Nibs, with her hybrid strength, was barely able to keep the Teocellus away from the face, whereas Joe was able to keep it away from his face despite him only being human? And speaking of Teocellus, how did it even survive getting kicked across the room by Wendy and slamming against the desk? Shouldn't it have, like, ruptured it or blown it up or something, like, considering it is an eyeball? More or less. And as far as the Xenomorph, who is the main attraction in this series, I know a lot of people complain about it being controlled by Wendy, which I actually don't have a problem with the concept of the Xenomorphs being controlled. I mean, after all, a lot of the comics, especially Dark Horse comics, used the storyline where the alien was being manipulated by someone or something. But here's the thing, though. In practically every single one of those comics, the Xenomorphs ended up fighting back and showing why they are such a deadly species and why they cannot be controlled. Alien Earth, on the other hand, well, they pretty much relegated the Xenomorph to being a play toy for Wendy, and not only that it goes out in broad daylight, but it does not even try camouflaging itself when it goes to attack humans, or doing anything of any kind to make itself menacing. And, and apparently when you shoot a Xenomorph in its head with a rubber bullet, it's more than enough to drive it away. I mean, are you kidding me with this? And the way that the concept of Wendy is able to control the Xenomorphs and were poorly implemented if they tried. And do we really need a close-up of Cindy Chandler's lips every time she makes that noise and controls the Xenomorphs? Which, by the way, she's able to do that no matter where she's at. And it doesn't matter if she's doing it quietly or she's doing it loudly. No matter where or how she does it, Xenomorphs always seem to be able to be in control of her, and this show never really does explain how she gains that ability to begin with. And speaking of which, how did she even gain that ability? I mean, bad enough that they didn't explain how she got it, but how was she able to do so with only one encounter with a Xenomorph? I mean, I do understand her being able to manipulate machines and computers and stuff because she is part machine. But why did they not even bother explaining how she could have such a mastery over manipulating the Xenomorphs? The more I think about the show, and especially finale, the more angry and the more let down I feel. And before I watched the finale, I honestly would have recommended the show to people despite its flaws. But yeah, but again, that was before I watched the finale. But after watching it, I would honestly say, well, by the way, if you did see the show, great, cool. You're kind of like in the same boat as me, but I can say if you haven't already seen this show, I would honestly advise you to skip it unless you have time to kill, and if you don't mind watching hour-long episodes that lead to absolutely no end game, then I would say avoid this like the Lucerda plague. And I did give this show a rating of 6.5 out of 10 on Blue Sky, which, by the way, Blue Sky, feel free to follow my account on it. It's the only social media that I use. But I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what? Why am I giving such a high rating to a show that I wouldn't recommend to people who haven't seen it yet? So I have to amend my rating of the show to being just 4 out of 10, which I'm sure some of you still think that's too high, but, I mean, this show did have some cool concepts and cool scenes that I hate being redundant. But it just feels like this show is just a huge missed opportunity to add something truly special to the Alien franchise. And if I may be totally honest with you all, this finale has put me in such a foul mood, and the show overall has me feeling like a waste of my time with it. Even if the show is renewed for a second season, like it's anticipated being renewed for a second season, I'm honestly not sure if I'm even going to watch it, because the show did little to nothing, especially in the finale, to make me want to care what happens next on it. It did absolutely nothing with the story or the characters to make me want to be further invested in it. And that kills me to say, because, like I said, I am a huge fan of the Alien franchise. But yeah, I think I pretty much said what I wanted to. I mean, I could go on and on, but I kind of don't want to. I'm going on 25 minutes, which is a lot longer than what I was planning on. But and you know what? I decided to make this video just to get off my chest. I know a lot of you did not ask for this, or a lot of you probably don't even care what my opinion on this show was. But I really need to get this off my chest, and it's been gnawing at me because of how disappointed I feel. And if anything, hopefully those of you that have been watching this or listening to this will understand where I'm coming from with all this. And if you want, please feel free to leave a comment below about your thoughts on this show. Whether you liked it, disliked it, you can tell me what your favorite episode was, what your least favorite was. What did you think about the finale, whether you loved it or hate it. But if you do leave a comment, all that I ask is that if you do disagree with me, please keep your comments civil. Please, that's all I ask. But with that, I'm gonna go ahead and end things off here before I ramble on anymore. But I really do thank you all for watching this and listening to this. I really do appreciate you giving your time to me and listening to me about what my thoughts are on Alien Earth. And again, please feel free to leave a comment. And yeah, I will see you guys again next time.